Hello, my wargamers. I am Jonathan Arkin, your host today in our journey to learn how to crump as hard as possible. Some may call me the Chief Crumpinator. Actually, maybe don't call me that. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about the fight phase and how to master this extremely important aspect of combat. Some would argue the most important aspect of combat in the tactical game of Warhammer 40,000. We are going to pop in right into this game today. But before we do, please be sure to hit like, subscribe if you like this content. I promise you I'm going to keep it coming at you. And if you could just hit a little share, or if you could comment down below with things that you like about the video, things about you hate about the video, things that I could do better, or questions you have, and for future videos, I would love to get into it. Now let's talk about the fight phase. So, the fight phase is going to be divided into a couple different sections, and it can be really difficult to master. So I'm going to be demonstrating on TTS so that you guys can see all the little intricacies of how to do movement. So the fight phase, it's going to be divided into this. First of all, you've got to determine your order of activation. This is, remember everyone, this is after the charge phase. So we've already completed the charge phase, all right? First off, determine order of activation. Who do you want to go with first? Then you'll have to pile those models in. Then you actually allocate your attacks. And then you'll do your consolidation movement, and then you will alternate activations for players. So we're going to take a detailed attention of each one of these subcategories of the fight phase. Order of activation. This is super dang important, and it's one of the most confusing aspects of the game. So activation is going to be divided into three different categories. Count them: 1, 2, and 3. The first category is all the units in the game that have fight first. Now remember, this only applies to models that are within engagements. So all the models in the army that have fights first. This includes every unit that charged, because when you charge, you essentially are given fights first as the ability for that turn. All right. All of these subcategories have alternating phases where one player goes, then the other player goes, then one player goes, and the other player goes. The first category is fights first, which includes all chargers. This also includes armies like Inari, where everyone fights first, or Emperor's Children, where everyone fights first, or Emissaries Imperialis, where everyone fights first, which we will be using as part of our demo. So the player whose turn it is, meaning if I'm the one who's doing the charging and I'm the one who's doing the attacks, it's my turn. That means I choose the first activation of all the units that are in the fights first category. All right, so I charge 3 units and say you have one of the units I charged has fights first. I still activate first, meaning I can choose to fight first in the combat against your model that fights first. We're going to go a little bit more in detail on the TTS screen, I promise, but that's the way it works. Then after I fight first, if the opponent has any models or units that have fight first abilities, they would then fight next. Or if the opponent decides to use the counter-offensive stratagem to allow them to interrupt combat, they could fight next. And then it would go back to one of my units that chooses to fight, because it alternates back and forth until all units that have the fights first ability have fought. And then we move into the second category of activation. This is going to be fights normal. This is going to be all of the units that don't have a fights first, meaning they don't have that ability naturally or they did not charge, except for the units that have fight last, which we will get to that. It can be a little confusing. All right, so the fights first includes all of those units that don't have fight first. Or, there's one exception, it can also include a unit that does have fight first, but also has fights last. This could happen in certain situations where your opponent casts a spell on you, so it makes you fight last. Or if you're charging certain models, like the Silent King, for example. If you charge the Silent King, what'll happen is he can give you fights last. But if you charge him, you're also fights first, which means you're actually fighting in the fights normal phase. These things do not stack, so it doesn't matter if you have 3 fights first abilities and 1 fights last. You're still fighting normal if you have one of both. Okay, so there's never any arguments that's like, oh, I have 3 fights first and it cancels out. And no, it doesn't. If you have any fights first and any fights last, you're in the fights normal phase. So the fights normal phase always starts with the player whose turn it is not. So if it's my turn and I charged, then you, as the opponent, will get to choose the first activation in the fights normal phase. Then lastly, we'll go into the fights last phase. This is only units that have fights last on them, whether it's through an ability, a spell, a stratagem, or anything like that. And the fights last category will always start with the player whose turn it is. So if it's my turn because I charged, I will choose the first of the fight's last combats. Now, let's go ahead and talk about just a few things that can really screw with this order, and then I'm going to go to the TTS view and kind of show you how this works in real time. All right, so what are some things that can really screw with our orders of activation? So if I charge 3 units, for example, I have to determine which one I want to start with because my opponent can always interrupt or whatever. So what are some things that can really screw with this? Well, it's going to be other enemy units that have the fight's first ability. For example, what I'm about to show you is I'm going to be having the orcs charge into the custodes, but the custodes are going to be emperors imperiatus, which means that everyone in their army fights first. So it essentially boils down to like a free combat interrupt, more or less, for every single unit. So you're going to be really careful about who you choose to activate first with, because your opponent's going to activate first in the next fight, which is challenging. Fights last can cause problems here, because if you use fights last on the enemy, they can no longer use the counter-offensive stratagem, so they can't interrupt. Even if they have fights first, they still can't use it because they have fights last. Then what's going to happen is phase caps really screw with order of activation. So if I charge Gazkul Thraka into a enemy in the combat phase, the maximum amount of wounds you can take is 4 wounds. So many times I don't care if you choose to make him fight last or if you choose to interrupt into him. It doesn't make any difference because you can't kill him anyway. So at that point, a lot of times I would essentially never choose to activate with Gaz first unless he only had like 4 wounds left and you could kill him. But if he's at full health, I'm never going to choose to activate with him first, unless I'm fighting someone who can ignore, phase caps. Then maybe I would. But outside of that niche situation, why would I ever bother choosing to fight with him first? When what's my opponent going to do? Spend 2 CB to interrupt so they can cause 4 wounds to him? Okay, that's fine. And then we also have fights on death abilities. These really screw with your order of activation as well. Because if I have say I'm running Space Wolves and I have the Wolfen, and the Wolfen just fight on death, well, I don't really care if you interrupt there. It doesn't matter to me at all because I'm just going to fight you back and kill you anyway. So these are the things that really kind of screw with your orders of activation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop on over to our TTS view, and I'm going to kind of walk us through some of this stuff, okay? All right, so here we are, and we're on TTS because computers are magical, and they can cause us to just jump like that. All right, so I've got a little bit of a situation set up. So I've got a bunch of custodes on the battlefield, and then I've also got a bunch of our orcs here as well. And these are a couple different scenarios. So let's say it's the orcs' turn, and we're about to charge. We haven't charged yet, but we're about to charge. We need to figure out what we are going to do. So we have all these beast nagas. And technically, we don't own this objective yet, simply because Custodes count as 2 models, and he also has OBSEC. So he has 4 models on this objective right now, and I only have 2 models with OBSEC, because beast nagas are OBSEC. So I'm going to have to charge in and do something about these guys. But I've got some problems, because I have Trajan Valorous here, who can really hurt in melee, and then I've got a Blade Champion here, who can also really hurt in melee. So and then on the way over here, I have to make sure I deal with these bikes, or otherwise they're going to kill me next turn. So I have to be really careful. So in this situation, what I'm going to choose to do is I'm going to charge Gazkul, and I'm going to charge him all the way into these bikes. You see it's a 7-inch charge, and he also has a shield captain, so I'm going to have to charge both units. So I'm going to use this to demonstrate how do we accurately use all of our pile-ins. All right, so let's just say I need a 7 and I roll a 10-inch charge. So I have 10 inches of movement, and I have to charge both of them. That means I have to end within 1 inch of the shield captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike, and I have to end within 1 inch of this unit. Luckily, Gaz has a really big base, so this isn't super hard to do. So I'm just going to put a 1-inch aura on him, so it makes it really easy. So you guys see this aura? That'll show if we're within an inch. So it makes it really easy to see if I'm in engagement. So I rolled a 10 for my charge, so I'm just going to move him as far as I possibly can while staying within an inch of the shield captain. So that's probably about as far as I possibly can go. Now, if you remember my last video, our charge shenanigans, one of the things that we can do is we can do this type of a charge to make it so the shield captain can't activate, right? So what'll happen is when I activate Gazkul, I would just pile in, because I'm closer to the bikes, I would just pile in closer into the bikes, which takes me further away from the shield captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike. And that means that this guy will never be able to activate in the fight phase because he's not in engagement range anymore. Okay. Over here, now I also have to deal with all of this mess. This is a bit of a problem. So my beast boss is going to have to charge into the custodian guards. And I'm going to try to do the exact same strategy that I'm trying to do over here with Gazkul Thraka. because I want to make sure Trajan can't heroically intervene. But the problem is I also have this Blade Champ, and he's definitely going to be able to heroically intervene no matter what I do. So maybe I want to make it so that he can only get one of his units in, and he can't get both these characters in. So what I'm going to do is the Beast Boss is only going to charge the Custodians. And I'm going to maybe put him right here. I'm going to keep him outside of 6 inches of the Blade Champ so that I can't get heroically intervened. Now I am within 6 inches of Trajan Valoris. So Trajan is going to say, yes sir, I'm going to come in and play. And he's going to heroically intervene into me. Now he's got 6 models on this objective because each custodian counts as 2. And I only have 2. And I got to expect that what he's going to do is he's going to have to pile in his units here to get more. So I need more bodies on this objective. So my Beast Snaggers are going to have to charge in as well. They're going to charge into the Custodian Guard. And let's say they make the charge. So we're just going to put them all in like this. And then what we're going to have to start thinking about is we're going to have to be able to make some really tough decisions. So this guy came over here. Okay. And then over here, I'm in a really bad position because this kill rig right here, if you look at him, he can charge into our wardens. But the problem if he does that, the wardens are going to be able to pile in and take the objective. And I don't want to give the custody player an extra objective. So this is one of the rare situations where I'm actually, as an orc player, going to choose not to charge. Because I know that I'm not going to activate with the kill rig first, because the likelihood of him killing 5 wardens is really, really small. And then the wardens are going to be able to just pile onto the objective, steal it from me, and possibly kill me as well. So in this situation, I'm actually just going to accept the fact that I own this objective, try to put the custody player on a lower primary score, and not let him. And so I'm just not going to make this charge. So now I have to be really, really cautious how I'm going to activate. Because I have 3 units that charge, right? I have Gazgul, I have the Beast Boss and Squigosaur, and I have the Beast Snagger units. Since I charge, I get to activate first. But this Custode player, since he's Emissaries Imperatus, he also has fight first on all of his units. So no matter what happens, wherever I activate, he will activate next. So in this situation, I'm going to not choose to activate first with Gaz, even though I really wanted to do this maneuver where I could pile him in, right, closer this way. So now I'm closer to this guy than I was, and I'm further away, so now the captain couldn't activate. But actually, I'm even closer to this bike. So let's say Gaz does a great job, and he kills a bunch of bikes. Then Gaz could actually, let's say I kill all of these bikes. Then all I have to do is I can move an extra 3 inches with my consolidation, and I could end up on the objective and just end closer to the bike. So now I'm 0.1 inches away instead of 0.3 inches. And I probably just base him to make sure that he couldn't move at all. And I still control this objective. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do this because I have to activate over here first so I can make sure I get this objective. So let me try here. So let me just put these guys back. But I wanted to demonstrate to you guys so you understood what I could have done with Gazgul and why I wanted to be able to do that. So we'll just put him right back to where he was. Okay. So instead, what I'm actually going to have to do, these custodians could really kill all of my beast snaggers, and I can't have that because they're my obsec. So I'm actually going to activate with the beast boss first into the custodian guard. You might want to think, oh, maybe I want to kill Trajan, but the likelihood of Trajan killing the beast boss in one activation is pretty small. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into the custodian's guard, and I'm going to kill all the guard because this guy is kitted out for death. He's got brutal but cunning, and he's got to be exploding on a bunches. So I'm just going to kill all the guards. So let's just pick all these guys up. They're all dead. They're not going to survive that. And then what I'll do with my consolidation move is I will actually tag Trajan Valoris. So now Trajan can't pile in into my Beast Naga boys to attack them. Pretty cool, isn't it? I personally think that's super cool. So even though he engaged, Trajan, since he heroically intervened, off of his pile-in, he could have moved from here all the way to be engaged with both of them by getting closer to the Beast Boss. And then he would have been able to obliterate all of my Beast Nagas. But instead, since my Beast Boss has based him, he can't do that. And he has to put all of his attacks into the Beast Boss. So he's going to fail to kill the Beast Boss, but it'll do some wounds. Let's say he does like 4 wounds to him. Now, my opponent gets to fight next. Let's sorry, I skipped ahead of myself. So Trajan hasn't attacked yet, but he will. So now my opponent is going to want to decide what he's going to do about Gaz, and he wants to make sure that I don't take the objective, and he also wants to kind of screw up my plans here so everyone can attack. So he's going to choose to fight with his bikes next. All his bikes have to do is boom, touch Gazkul. So now Gazkul is based, meaning Gazkul cannot move at all, as long as these guys are engaged with him. So all these bikes are going to attack Gaz, and they're going to do the 4 wounds. And remember, I don't care about Gaz taking the 4 wounds, because now he's face capped. He can't die. Which means his shield captain, he might do a pile-in to bring him closer to this combat, but he's kind of screwed because he can't deal any wounds to Gaz. That's why I don't care about activating first with Gaz, because he has that face cap, which is a really, really cool thing. Right? So then Gaz will fight, and maybe he'll kill this captain here. All right, and so that's going to be it for that turn. Now the Custodi, they actually have to determine what they want to do next, right? Now that the Beast Boss is locked in combat with Trajan, neither one can do any combat movement shenanigans. So in the Custodian's turn, these Wardens are going to come on, and they're probably going to kill this Killrig. He's probably going to die. And then this Blade Champion is going to come up, and he is going to want to probably... It's going to be hard for him to kill all of the Beast Snagas in this activation because he only has 12 attacks, and you're assuming that he's going to convert that to 10 wounds with no saves. It's unlikely. So what the Blade Champion is going to do is he's actually going to charge the Beast Boss. So let's say that Trajan Valoris did his 4 wounds last turn, and then he activated his special ability to fight again and did another 4 wounds. So now that I'm in the Custodi player's turn, I'm going to have to figure out, how do I kill this Beast Boss? I can't let the Beast Boss fight before me, because if I do, then what's going to happen is the Beast Boss is going to kill Trajan. So I'm going to need to charge him. The Blade Champion is going to charge, and let's say he charges like a 6, so he gets into both units. This really screws up the Custodi player's order of activation, right? And why does it screw up the Custodi player's order of activation? Because he wanted to charge these Wardens in and guarantee a kill against the Killrig. But he can't do that. He's going to have to attack over here first. Because he knows that I, as an Orc player, have 2 CP to do combat interrupt. And he also knows I have 2 CP, which can make me fight on death. So this fight on death and this combat interrupt is going to really screw up his order of activations. Because if he wants to use the Blade Champion to kill the Beast Boss will just spend 2 CP to fight on death. Right? So let's say he does. So the Beast Boss is dead. Well, Beast Boss is going to fight on death and say he kills the Blade Champion. And Trajan is untouched, but Trajan can't charge anymore. So it doesn't matter. He can't pile in because he hasn't charged. So there's no way he can get an engagement with these Beast Snaga boys. So the power of the fight on death ability the Beast Boss Squigosaur had using his stratagem was really, really strong. Because now I'm still going to have control of this objective in my next turn, and the Beast Snaga boys can then maybe shoot Trajan, maybe kill him. Now, the Custodian always has fights first, so what he's going to want to do is he's going to have to decide whether he wants to fight first with his Wardens first, or if he wants to fight first with the bikes. This is a tough decision, because they won't kill Gaz, but they could get rid of 4 of his wounds. And Gaz is not guaranteed to kill them. I think, however, the Wardens are just going to want to kill the Killrig. So the Killrig is going to die, and then Gaz is probably going to kill 3 bikes. On average. And then Gaz will just kind of pile in, do his consolidation move to touch there. So now we still have an engaged combat right here, and we have a combat over, and there's no combat over here. So in the second Orc player's turn, now he gets to decide what does he want to do with Trajan. He's probably going to have to charge Trajan, because Trajan can't kill the whole squad anyway, which means I'm going to maintain control of this objective. So you guys saw how I went with that. I prioritized certain orders in order to make it so that the Custodian player had the least amount of impact onto me at first. I threw Gazkul over here into a huge death squad and a really strong character because I don't care because he has a phase cap. Then I didn't care that everyone activated first over here because my Beast Boss and Squigsaur had a fight on death ability. These fights on deaths and these phase caps are how you get around armies that have fights first. Because fights first is an extremely strong ability that normally would crush the Orcs. However, the orcs use intelligently using their fights their fights on death ability and the Gazkul Mekir Thraka's phase cap is really powerful. So that is going to be how we activate order of activation. So I'm going to go back onto the PowerPoint, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some different stuff here. So let's take a look here. All right, we're on the pylon now. Now the pylon gives you 3 inches of movement toward the closest enemy unit. And this can be used to defeat heroic interventions, just like we did on the previous video. I'm not going to go over that again. If you would like to learn about that, though, I will link it below. The counteroffensive stratagem, which we kind of already spoke about because the order of activation, that we already spoke about that a little bit. And remember, you cannot pile in if you are based. That's when we touch the bases together. There's no more pile-in movement. This can be used in a really powerful way to deny opponents free movements. When the pile-in is used, you get more units to attack than you may have originally believed. And I'm going to demonstrate by charging the Beast Nagas on in just a moment so I can show you just how much movement you can get. Now, this is also really important. Pile-in is activated for your opponents as well. So if your opponent gets to activate, they get to pile in, and they are not restricted to only being able to attack units that they charged, because that only applies to the active player's turn. So if me, as the active player, I can only attack units that I charge or units that heroically intervene into me. It doesn't matter if I pile into other enemy units, I can't attack them if I didn't declare them as a charge. But they can attack me. So defensively, sometimes a pile-in can be really, really useful because you can pile in into someone and you get to attack them even though they didn't charge you, and they can't fight back, which is really, really strong. So just be aware of that. All right, so theoretically speaking, on our pile-in, we can actually get a shocking... actually, I'm going to talk about that when we go to the consolidate. So let me just go in the pile-in. I'm going to kind of show you how you can get more units into combat than you really originally expected. Back to the TTS view. Okay, so let's just kind of reset here just a little bit. So let's say we have Trajan, and my Beast Naga boys want to charge Trajan. It's a 7-inch charge. So let's say I roll exactly 7 inches. So my Beast Naga boy, or here, let's do it like this. Let's make it 7.9, and we roll exactly... Jesus. Sorry, guys. I should have had this set up better. Anyway, so 7.8 inches, that means it's a 7-inch charge, okay? Or I'm sorry, yeah, that means it's a 7-inch charge, okay? Because it's, yeah. So the Beast Naga boy is going to make their 7-inch charge. And they're going to move 7 inches. 7 inches for the knob. And we'll just move everyone else in for 7 inches. Now, here it might look like we're not going to get every Beast Naga boy to be able to attack, because you only get a 3-inch pile-in. But 3 inches is a lot of distance. So watch how we do this. My Beast Naga knob is going to go 3 inches, and he's going to come all the way over here. This Beast Naga boy is going to go 3 inches, 0.2, and he's going to stop right there. Now this Beast Naga boy is going to come all the way over here, because he doesn't have to get engagement with Trajan, right? He just has to be within half an inch of a model that's within half an inch of Trajan. Then this Beast Naga boy can come 3 inches all the way over here. Then this Beast Naga boy can come 3 inches all the way over here. Then this Beast Naga boy can come 3 inches all the way over here. This Beast Naga boy can come right here. And we're going to pop him there so that we're within half an inch. Then this guy can come 3 inches here. So if you notice, this is still half an inch. So this guy still gets to attack Trajan, even though he's not within an inch, because he's within a model that's within half an inch of Trajan. Then this Beast Naga boy is going to do the exact same thing. Now he's within half an inch of this model, who's also within half an inch of Trajan. And then lastly, this Beast Naga comes right here, and he also gets to attack because he's within half an inch of a model who's within half an inch of Trajan. So all of these models still get to attack Trajan, even though it looks like they can't. But they can, because rules are really cool. Because remember, normal engagement range is 1 inch, but you can fight in 2 ranks if you're within half an inch of another model that's within half an inch. So look at all that movement we gained. We also did something else very, very important. What we did is we completely encircled Trajan. So if we look at the way Trajan is currently encircled, What happens now is that next turn, no matter what, let's say we have a gravity tank right here, and we've got an Achilles dreadnought, and we're afraid that they're going to kill all my beast snags in shooting, Trajan will be unable to fall back because his base cannot fit between here. So he is officially blocked. Now, there is a stratagem called the Desperate Breakout, which they could use, but it's typically not going to be used many times unless it's really, really dire circumstances. But for right now, it's going to be impossible for Trajan to fall back, which means all these gravity tanks can't shoot and kill all the beast snagga boys. So you guys can grasp how important this movement of trapping people in combat is. When you're trapping someone in combat, technically, and I'm just going to kind of, so you guys understand how the pile in there works. So let me just show you this. You actually don't need that many models to ever do a trap against Trajan. We could have done the same thing if there's only 3 beast snagga boys left. So if we had Trajan trapped in combat right here, what happens is Trajan is completely trapped in combat because it's going to be impossible for him to get out of combat without pushing into someone else's base because of the size of his base. So this is called the tri-point maneuver, and it is a great way to make sure that a unit of orcs or literally anything is safe from shooting. Because now, even if they have overwhelming firepower, they can never shoot this unit because they're going to be trapped in combat. Even though normally you would want to fall Trajan back, here you can't. So that's a really important strategy right there called the tri-point combat. Okay, so that was the pylons activation. That was to show you how to do pylons. And I think we demonstrated with Gazcool a little bit as well, just how far you can get. But let's just do that one more time for everyone. So let's say we've got our 4 bikes here. And Gazcool, he has to make a good charge. Let's say he makes that 7-inch charge. So he moves his 7 inches. So what he wants to do here is he wants to pile in closer to the closest enemy model. Sorry, let's put him, make sure he's legally within gate range. Okay. So we want to pile in closer to the closest enemy model. So right now I'm exactly 1 inch away. So let's move him to be 3 inches this way. And now what's going to happen is I'm 0.8 inches away from this model. So after I fight, let's say that he kills these 2 models. Now Gazcool is going to do his consolidation maneuver. Boop, 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 boop. Still closer to the closest enemy model, but also touching the objective. So it gives you, so basically he gained like an extra 3 inches of distance off of his 7-inch charge. So his 7-inch charge gave him a 10-inch movement. So this pile and consolidate is very, very powerful. I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint now, and we're gonna clear things up a little bit for everyone if you're a little confused. Let's learning about allocating our attacks correctly. This is a very important concept. How do you allocate your attacks correctly? Because remember, after you activate and you pile your units in, you have to allocate attacks. Certain attack profiles are going to be better in certain orders. So the example I wrote here is, let's pretend that we have a unit of orc commandos attacking a unit of infiltrators. So infiltrators are the Space Marine unit that can block out like 12 inches for deep strikes. They have a special ability called a Helix Gauntlet. And what that Helix Gauntlet's going to do is it's going to blank one damage, or not just one wound, but it's going to blank an entire damage roll once per battle round. I believe it's battle round. Could be per turn, but I think it's battle round. So if I'm wrong on that, whatever. Anyway, typically what you want to do with the commandos is you want their knob to fight first, because he has a power claw, which is just a power fist. It's going to be AP 3 damage 2. And you want to hit with that first because each one of those will kill a Space Marine. But since they have that Helix Gauntlet, the power claw only hits on 4s because it's -1 to hit. You have 3 attacks with it. You're probably going to miss 1, maybe 2 of them. And then the other one is probably going to wound. Maybe 2 wounds. Well, is that really a great idea? Because let's say it's AP 3, so 2 get through. The opponent makes 1 6-up armor save. So they only take 1, which should still kill a whole Space Marine. But because they have that special ability of the Helix Gauntlet, blank, it doesn't kill anyone. Because they're going to get rid of the damage. Very frustrating if you allocate your attacks in the wrong order, because the power claw is going to be the most efficient killer that the orcs have into that Space Marine unit. So in this case, if I'm charging the infiltrators, what I might choose to do is actually attack with my normal guys first, because they have a bunch of damage 1 attacks. And even though those aren't as efficient into Space Marines, it is going to be 12 attacks, and they can explode on 6s, so it could be more. So they can realistically get 4 to 6 wounds through. And if that's the case, let's say they get 5 wounds through, and they fail 5 armor saves. Well, the Helix Gauntlet is only going to blank one of the 1 damage attacks, which is a really big deal because now there's 4 wounds left over, so it kills 2 infiltrators, and then my knob attacks, and his attacks kill 2 infiltrators. So you end up getting a lot more death that way versus the first way I thought about attacking, which is using the Power Claw first, which would ended up of only killing 2 Space Marines. Now we've killed 4. So you have to be really careful about how you allocate your attacks depending on your opponent's defensive profile. All right. Now, you also really, really desperately want to pay attention to wounded units, because if any model has 1 wound left, you definitely don't want to be wasting your bigger damage attacks against them. So let's just say here, let's go back to the TTS real fast, and we're back to the live. All right, so now let's pretend, let's get Trajan out of here, and let's get our, here, let's just put some wardens in. So let's say the Beast Nagas charge the wardens, and they're all the way in there. And one of these wardens have 3 wounds each. So let's say one of them has 1 wound left. And I have a unit of Beast Naga boys, and I want to make sure these wardens die, which is going to be hard because they're going to only be wounding them on like maybe 4s, maybe 3s, depending on what culture you are, what clan they are. And what's going to happen is it's only damage 1 with AP1, which means the wardens will have a 3-up armor save, right? And 1's on 1 wound. Now, my knob here has a special weapon that is going to be dealing 2 damage. I don't want to use him first, because if he does deal 2 damage, that 2 damage is going to go to kill the one guy who has 1 wound. Because remember, your opponent will choose which... your opponent always has to take the attacks in the turn that you give them to. And that was confusing, so let me explain a little bit better. If I attack with the knob first, he has no choice, actually. He has to take the damage on the wounded model. So, which means that you just put your biggest damage dealer into the guy who's going to die from your crappy damage dealers. So instead of wasting your good damage dealer, you're going to put all of your crappier attacks that are only damage 1 in first. So now I'm going to put all my damage 1 attacks. They will kill the first warden, and then the knob, who has your 2 damage, he can kill the last warden. Instead of doing it this way, where say the knob only gets 1 wound through, well, his 1 wound, which deals 2 damage, kills a model with 1 wound left, so the other damage is wasted. Maybe we'll just flip them to denote better. And then my Beast Naga boys, this is already after a pile-in, so they're only going to get their 2 guys to get to attack this guy, because you've already attacked with your Beast Naga knob into the unit. And they're not going to kill this warden. But if we had done it the other way, you get to attack with 1, 2, 3, and 4 Snaga boys first. Roll those 4 Snaga boys into the warden. They kill him. And then the Beast Snaga knob also still attacks. And then his attack damage has to go on the guy who's left over. Okay? So you want to be really, really careful when you're allocating attacks. Now, your opponent is the one who gets to choose where your attack damage goes first. So let's say they have a full squad of wardens here, and they're trying to make sure that they keep this objective. So we'll put this guy back up to full wounds. Let's say you deal 4 damage and you kill 1 warden, and one other guy is going to be down to 1 damage, to 1 wound left, or 2 wounds left. And then the knob comes through and kills another guy. And deals another 2 damage. So he's going to kill 1 more because he dealt a ton of wounds. Well, in this situation, say he just does 2 damage to this guy. Now the wardens are going to do their pile in, boom, 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 like this. And then this. So this guy goes first, actually, put him this way, and then this guy moves here. And then this warden is going to move his 3 inches to get there. So now the custodian player has essentially 6 models on the objective, because he was smart about the way he allocated his wounds. He allocated his wounds to the guys furthest back because he knows he wants to get them onto the objective to try to steal it from the Beast Naga boys. Okay? So that's the way your attack allocations work, and that's the way your opponent can use your attacks to his advantage to kill the models that don't matter to him. Now, let us return to the PowerPoint, and we'll start wrapping this up here. All right. So then we have our consolidation move. This is after you attack, but before you activate a new unit. You get to move 3 inches toward the closest enemy unit again. And this can be a very different unit than the unit who you piled into. Because if you piled into someone because they were the closest originally, now you might have a new closest enemy unit that can let you consolidate somewhere else. Theoretically, this can get you to move 18 inches with a 12-inch charge, which, like I wrote here, is probably never going to happen because there's like all these angles, but it can get you a crazy amount of combat movement. So let me show you how you can use consolidation moves to really screw your opponents up. We're going to use the Beast Naga and Warden example again. So let's bring all the Wardens back to life. Now what this Beast Naga character is really, what the Orc character here wants to do is they want to make sure, they don't think they can kill all the Wardens, but they want to make sure that they hold this objective. So they will activate here. They're going to use a 3-inch pile-in. Boom. Because this guy's all the way over here, right? And if you could just measure the distance, it's 1.8. So they just have to end closer than 1.8 inches. He can come right here to 1.2 inches. Let's even move him a little bit further away. So now he's closer to the closest enemy unit. Then this guy can go his 3 inches. And he can go, or let's wait on that. Then this guy's going to do his 3 inches. And he's going to block right here. And he's actually even going to base this Warden, so the Warden can't pile in. And then this guy is going to move in his 3 inches and also base this Warden. And then this guy is going to move 3 inches, so he'll still get to attack, right? Still get to attack. This guy gets to move in. He's not going to base. The knob here is not going to base. And these guys come in. So let's say all of the Beast Nagas get to attack except for one guy. So this guy won't be able to attack because he's not within half an inch of a half an inch. So then we kill the Wardens. So we kill 2 Wardens. Now we have a consolidation maneuver we can do, because this is going to be the consolidation happens before the enemy Wardens get to attack. So now I can take this Beast Naga and I can move him another 3 inches towards the closest enemy unit. So now I'm going to be 1.4 from him and 2.1 from him. So this is going to bring me right about here, which takes me closer. But it also blocks this Warden from trying to be able to pile in around me, which is really dang powerful. This Smash and Knob can come over here. This guy can come over here. This guy can come right here and base everyone. So now the Wardens cannot get onto the objective. And I gave myself an extra inches movement with the Beast Naga boys. Isn't that cool? So you can use your pile-ins to get a crazy amount of movement. And there's even some units in the game, Beast Nagas being one of them, that can spend CP to actually pile and consolidate 6 inches each time. So this can get you, heck, an extra 12 inches. So then those guys can move 24 inches from a charge, theoretically. So I hope this was really, really useful for everyone so that you can understand some pile-in tricks. So what you can do here, let's say that actually we wanted to trap the entire unit. The Snagas could also have charged in like this. So at this point, now it would be absolutely impossible for the Wardens to ever fall back, and they're also protected from shooting, because it's the exact same situation we showed with Trajan. So hopefully you guys learned a lot. These fight tricks can swing combat like crazy, because now I can't be shot. It gets you extra free movement. It blocks the opponent from being on a move. You have to learn these combat moves and these combat tricks really, really well, and they'll serve you super, super well. I hope that was awesome for everyone. If you enjoyed this, even if you hated this, please support me. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, share this content to all your friends and to your enemies, and hopefully everyone is going to grow together and we're all going to become better Krumpers. If you have any questions or comments, please type them below. I do respond to every single question I receive on the webpage or on the YouTube, and that's it until next time. So everybody, I hope you have an amazing day and happy Krumpin'.